We're talking to some of the most iconic names in the world of sports here at Radio Row, here with Front Office Sports in preparation for Super Bowl 59. I'm Baker Machado. That is Dan Roberts, our editor-in-chief, but none like this one that is next to us right now, the legend, the real GOAT, Billie Jean King, joining us here. Such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Baker. Thanks, Dan, for having me. It's fantastic. Front Office Sports. How good can you? I mean, this is my life.
Amen.
Front office, I don't know about that.
Yeah, right. Basically, amen. So before we talk about a bunch of the other things in the world, I got to first start with your partnership you got going on with Dove. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the reason I did it is because they're doing a long-term partnership with this. If 45% of girls drop out of sports because they're told that they don't have a good body type, they have the wrong body type. We're always getting a lot of feedback that way, a little negative feedback. What they've done so far, they've reached 114 million girls in 153 countries, and they want to get to 250 million by 2030. So we really want girls to have confidence. One thing that sports did for me, it taught me to trust my body. And that's why I personally like to get girls in sports and boys if they're not in sports. Mm-hmm. It teaches you to trust your body. And that is so important in everyday life and going through it. Also, as goes the health of the mother, usually in a family, goes the health of the family. So it's really important for girls, I think, to be in sports. And also it teaches you leadership, confidence, all the things that every child should have, no matter what their gender. It really does help. But girls are taught to be perfect. That's why we're always coming up short, we think. You know, if a girl comes up to me or a woman, I go, oh, what are you doing? She always goes, I'm not any good, but I do this.
She's already setting herself short already.
Correct. And then a guy comes up to me and we'll be having a great talk and I go, what do you do? I do X, Y, or Z. I've only had 2 men in my whole lifetime that said I'm not very good. They just say what they do. They don't get into whether they're good or bad or indifferent. Right. The women are always putting themselves down. The women I've met here at Radio Row or whatever we're calling it.
Yeah.
It's like, I cannot tell you how many women say I'm not any good, but.
But it's all about changing the mindset and how you do that.
What Dove's trying to do is get the self-talk to improve. And psychologists, mentors, coaches, parents to think about this and then help the girls and help their boys too. I grew up with a younger brother, Randy Moffat, and he played 12 years of professional baseball. He was a relief pitcher with the Giants for 10 years. But the great thing about my parents is they never asked us if we won. We'd come home. I'm terrible when I listen. And they go, well, how was your day? And I go, are you kidding? I lost. And then my dad would say, well, I want to ask you one question. Did you do your best? I go, of course I did my best, but I lost. And he goes, it's enough. It's good enough.
Yep.
But that's great feedback from a parent. And especially a guy. My dad my dad believed in me as much as my brother. That in the 1950s, that was really a rarity. But I think it made a huge difference, not only in my sports world, which I played all sports before I played tennis, that it made such a difference in my everyday life.
It's really important. I have a daughter. I love what you're doing with Dove.
And you know.
It's been a while since the Battle of the Sexes. A lot has changed.
You weren't even born yet.
A lot hasn't changed. I mean, we at FOS are covering very closely this explosion in women's sports. And of course, it's not new, but the amount of eyeballs is new. The amount of investment is new.
Actually, it is new.
I know you've watched this and talked about this. I mean, WNBA, NWSL, PWHL, pick your example. Women on the tennis side. Why do you think it took until now, and what has finally happened? Why have we now, it feels like, reached a tipping point with women's sports?
Money, investment by billionaires, not millionaires, billionaires. You have to have the investment in us like you had in the men. We are so far behind, but to your point where you said that we are at a tipping point. And for me, I've lived my whole life to see this start to happen. I know if I died tomorrow that it's just starting. But this is what I've worked for my whole life, is to help us have more for women's sports. I've helped boys too. When Randy was in Little League, I bought their uniforms, the team. I'll always remember the coach calling me, would you buy the uniforms for? I said, absolutely. It's so cute. But no, but I think it's really fantastic to see. And because I have history, see, I'm a big believer, the more you know about history, the more you know about yourself. But the most important part of learning history is you can shape the future. I keep trying to tell kids, you guys, they don't like history. They think it's dead. It's alive every day. We're living it right now. And it's so important. It's the reason I could lead in tennis and women's and be able to lead at times. First of all, the players push me into lead. Leaders don't choose followers. Followers choose leaders. The players told me I had to be the one. And I kept saying, no, so girly. Oh, no, you do it. Oh, no, you do it. Finally, I went home one night and I went, probably a hotel. I wasn't even home. I said, you know what? I need to embrace this. I need to get off my backside and do it because I was told since elementary school, you're the one, you should do it. It's always the captain of the team. They always wanted me to do it. You do it, you do it. And I go, no. And so I embraced it and off and running. I was meant to do this. So
absolutely.
I was meant to because people do. I can get them wound up. It's good. You got to get people to believe in themselves to really go for it. And so women's tennis is the second professional sport, really. Women's golf was first. LPGA in 1950 had 13 players started. I don't know if you know that. In 1971, 70, we had one tournament. And that was the birth of women's professional tennis in Houston, Texas. There's 9 of us. We're called the original 9. The 3 things. Any girl born in this world, if she's good enough, would have a place to play for the first time. Number 2, to be appreciated for our accomplishments, not only our looks, which is still difficult. We're still about our looks. And then number 3, to be able to make a living playing what we love. And that was tennis, our group. 71, we had our first tour. Lots of tournaments, that means. And I won $117,000. Johnny Bench made $85,000. I wanted them to watch our tour and to get to know the players. And if you get to talk about the others, I would like athletes out there and others to think about speaking in terms of we and not I. Everything today is so much I. Yep. I want to hear we, like, talk about the other players, talk about what's happening, talk about your coaches, talk about who makes it happen, your teachers, who's invested in you. I mean, talk about them. Don't you understand? It takes all this money and this time and this effort from the front office. Oh, yeah. Anyway, just like here today, there's a lot of people that puts this broadcast together. It's not just you two sitting here. Someone has to do the camera. Someone has to do the writing. Someone has to get it set up. Someone has to, it goes on and on. And I love business. My former husband and I own tournaments. Ilana now and I we're part owners of the Dodgers and all that. I want to get more women investing. But how do you invest? You have to have money to invest. So I want more women to make more money. I want men to invest in us because it works. It makes people happy. Because it's happiness, it's jobs, it's just gets kids. First of all, I want kids to be active. And it's getting harder and harder.
I know also what's important to you is inclusion, diversity, and equity. Yeah. We've seen this corporate retreat, I think, when it comes to DEI programs. But in sports, Roger Goodell was asked about that this week, and he said, look, we are doing everything within the bounds of the law, and we have no plans to change our DEI practices.
I'm right on with him.
I would love to get your take on this.
No, he's absolutely, Roger's, first of all, Roger Goodell has done a great job of leadership. They've kept him on a long time. That's a pretty good sign when these owners who are billionaires, they're pretty tough. Yeah. And Roger's done a great job. He also has 2 girls, which I don't think hurts. And his leadership's been great. And he said it. It's really important to include everyone. It just, in life, I don't care what the laws say, just in your everyday life, do the right thing, be good to each other, be kind and good, and try to have empathy in what the other person may be feeling. Because I think the best leadership is when somebody has empathy. Mm-hmm. That is great leadership. That's not just hammering on somebody to have to do something. They will want to do it. And that's when people really shine, is when they want to do something.
Amen.
Lastly, I want to make sure I get your take on tennis. We haven't talked enough about tennis. The state of the game right now, the women who are at the forefront of the game, from Pegula to Goff.
Sabalenka, he's
sure.
Goff.
How do you feel about the current vanguard and where the sport is health-wise?
Well, I think every generation gets better as far as how they play. The rackets are better, the strings are better, the nutritional factors are better. We get more help than we've ever had. I mean, we have no excuses at all. I think the women are fantastic. I would like to hear we a little bit more, but I've told you in general that's what I feel. Also to think about where you want to take the sport, not just about your own career, but take the sport with you on this journey, because people will listen to them. They're talked to almost every day. They can make a big difference. But as far as their games and all that, everybody's so much better. I mean, it's the strings. I held an old wooden racket last night. I don't even know how we hit the ball.
Right.
McEnroe has said the same.
And we had a little, that was our sweet spot.
Yeah.
And now with these rackets, the sweet spot's huge, and that's where you want to hit the ball. It goes better.
Right.
Oh my gosh, it's so fantastic. But no, the players and the three guys we had for 20 years, Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer have been. Can you imagine? Alcaraz is born 20 years ago. He's only seen these three play at the very top. They've taken the sport made it better. And the women have made, every year the women do better and better. I mean, if you go through you know that. But my parents used to tell my brother and me, every generation gets better. And Althea Gibson was my first shero. And I went to watch her to see how good you had to be number one in the world. She was number one in the world. I go watch her and I go, oh my God, I'll never be that good. I'm going to have to practice so hard. And she's the first black person to ever play in a tournament, which was still amateur in those days, but the U.S. Nationals, which is now the U.S. Open, she played there. She's the first black to ever win a major. If it hadn't been for Althea, there would have never been an Arthur Ashe. And I'm sorry if you don't know these names because you're too young, but these are great players. But Althea Gibson is one of my sheroes in life. And what she had to put up with, she was also the first person of color to play on the LPGA, which I don't think a lot of people realize. So she was an amazing person. I promote her a lot because I want people to appreciate her. And especially the players of color have to know about her. Without her, they wouldn't have what they have. So, and none of us would really. So I think it's really important to know your history, but also to push us forward.
Yeah.
Because we do know the history. Where are we going? Where can we go? So I don't know. I get really excited, as you can tell.
No, but this is when you were such an inspiration to so many people, and anything you talk about, be it sports, business, whatever, people listen because no, it's true. People really respect
really nice
your knowledge and everything about this. Such a pleasure to have you here. I hope you have the most wonderful time here in New Orleans.
I'm having a great time.
Yes, well, please, it's New Orleans. Everybody has a good time in this place. We would love to have you back another time and talk more about this for more.
Anytime.
The legend, Billie Jean King, joining us here on Radio Row. All preparation for Super Bowl 59. We got more amazing interviews coming your way right here with Front Office Sports.
Baker and Dan.